Good morning, Rotarians and guests. Welcome to the Rotary Club of Hudson. I'm Ron Strobel, the Sergeant at Arms. Our invocation this morning is by Kelly Brennan.
Good morning. I'm going to do a Father Joe. There you go. It's for you, man. I've never done this, so bear with me. It's hard to see a little phone. When I say that I'm a Christian, I'm not shouting that I'm clean living. I'm whispering, I was lost, but now I'm found and forgiven. When I say I'm a Christian, I don't speak of this with pride. I'm confessing that I stumble, I need help, and Christ is there to guide me. When I say I'm a Christian, I'm not trying to be strong. I'm weak. And I need his strength to carry me. When I say I'm a Christian, I'm not bragging of success. I'm admitting that I failed and I need God to kind of clean up my mess from time to time. When I say I'm a Christian, I'm not competing to be perfect. My flaws are way too visible, but God believes in me, thinks I'm worth it. When I say I'm a Christian, I feel the sting of pain. I have my share of heartaches, so I call upon his name. When I say I am a Christian, I'm not holier than thou. I'm a simple sinner who received God's good grace somehow. Amen.
Thank you, Kelly. And lead us in the pledge and four-way test, Bill Tobin.
Morning, Rotarians. You know, when you get to my age, you get a chance to reminisce a little bit. And I remember 65 years ago or 67 years ago, I stood before this flag and took my commission in the Navy. And I did it proudly with my Pledge of Allegiance. Join me today proudly with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge of allegiance. I, United States of America, and to the republic under indivisible, with liberty and justice. And the four-way test of the things we think, say, and do as Rotarians. Number one. Number two. Number three. Number four. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Phil. Won't have Chris here again today, so there'll be no song. We do have a bit of business that we need to do this morning. The board has voted and approved the new officers and 3 new board members for the officers are for next year and the board members are for the 25-26 year. So to vote on the officers first, the president is Terry Bortnick. President-elect for 24-25, Mandy Conley. Treasurer, Ben Rexroad. Secretary, Chris Barker. And Sergeant at Arms, Ron Strobel. Are there any nominations from the floor? Being none, all in favor of those, say aye. Opposed? And the following 3 board positions, these are to fill the positions that are finished at the end of the 22-23 year. So the 3 board positions, Mimi Becker, Mike Swain, and Barbara Marshall. So all in favor of them, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, we now have our board. And also I should recognize the past president, but we don't have to vote on that. The past president will be Father Joe Boisel in another week. Okay, our president, Father Joe Boisel. Thank you.
Ron, I'll be singing that spiritual free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, I'm free at last. And Terry will be taking all the way over there. That's great. A couple of announcements. One is that the awards dinner is next Wednesday. So I think there's a sign up sheet going around. There at least was one on the table as we came in. Is it still out there? So make sure you stop by and sign up for that. Even if you don't have money like I didn't have this morning, you can bring it to the dinner. It is on next Wednesday, June 28th, 6 p.m. at the Hudson, or the Country Club of Hudson. And yeah, so plan to be part of that and come have dinner. We celebrate the changing of the guard awards and all the like. I also want to say that I have an announcement here Thursday, August 17th. At Progressive Field, the Detroit Tigers play the Cleveland Guardians, and it is Rotary night. So our district and two other districts are, part of the Rotary night at the Guardians game. And so if you're interested in that, there's I have a information I'll send around about that. Plan if you can to be part of that game. I think I'm going to be in Charleston, South Carolina that week, so I won't see y'all, but I'll watch it on television if I can. Okay. Let's see. Anything else? Oh, yes, we have one other item that we need to do is where our monthly service project is to help, or this isn't the service project. This is the a different thing. The emergency buckets is that our service project? Yes. It is. Okay, good. Then my confusion is not well placed. All right. So what we're doing is we have these emergency buckets we mentioned last week and perhaps the week before as well. They are to go into classes at the schools in the event of some sort of active shooter or other type incident that might occur. So inside of these buckets are some supplies, some things for persons who have diabetes that would help them in that case. Some sugar things. There's some like saltines and then there are other sort of supply packets inside. Each one of these buckets is $75 to $80. So we're trying to raise money to purchase those. We also are involved in a matching grant with our district. Some other areas where we're trying to secure funds so that we have one of these buckets in every classroom. Okay, so that's the service project for this month. And with that, I think, Joe, you're going to come in and introduce our guest, but yes, James, do you have something? Doug, I'm going to have you come up this way as well right now.
So
come this way.
You may not know the the answer. I probably should know because I'm down as one of the people for the buckets, but for the buckets, the $75, do you know if we make that out to Rotary Foundation or if we make a check out for that?
Ben, this is a money question. Where did he hide? If somebody was donating to the bucket, I don't call the bucket brigade, make it to the foundation.
To foundation? Great,
Foundation.
thank you.
Got a category to generating the bucket fund.
I'm going to hold you here for 1 second, and I'm going to bring Joe up. He's going to introduce Chief Barnes, and then we have a presentation to make, and then we'll turn it over to him. How's that sound? You know, this is the way I work things out. Yeah.
Well, you dance well.
I do. Yeah.
Okay, today we conclude our program theme for the month of June on community safety. We're pleased to have with us today our fire chief and EMS chief, Jerry Varnes. Chief Varnes has been a member of the Hudson Fire for 45 years and a member of EMS for 30 years. Prior to that, he retired in 2011 as a member of the Twinsburg Fire Department. He is also, which I didn't realize, was the co-owner of Hudson Appliance and TV for 25 years, and he sold that business back in 2002. A lifelong resident of Hudson, graduate of Hudson High School. He is married to Debbie for 37 years. They have 3 grown children. And Jerry is the proud recipient of our Jimmy Sutphin Service Above Self Award, which he received just a few weeks ago. So please extend a warm Rotary welcome to Chief Jerry Varnes.
Let me do this before you start. On behalf of Hudson Rotary, I'd like to present you with this check for 13,900, I forget the numbers. That was a result of our gala. And I was gone most of the month of May, so I saw the equipment name that this is for, which I have no idea what that name means. So if you would just give us a 2-second explanation of we're buying 3 somethings. And would you do that, please? But it's my pleasure to do this on behalf of all these fine folks here.
Excellent. These devices, they're called the RAD 57. Basically, it's a pulse oximeter. Anybody that's been to the doctor or the hospital, that thing they clip on your finger, and it helps register what the oxygen content is in your blood. What's unique about this particular pulse oximeter is it's used to help us determine if you have carbon monoxide in your blood. So if you've had a furnace failure, a hot water failure or something, and there's a suspicion that you have carbon monoxide, before this type of device was available, you had to go to the hospital, they had to draw blood. It took many hours sometimes to get the results back, sometimes a little quicker. And that entire time it was a question whether or not you had carbon monoxide, and had to go into that chamber to be able to get that carbon monoxide out of your blood. This instantaneously tells us that, so we can very, very rapidly get you on high flow oxygen, get you to the location, because there are very, very few locations even in the state of Ohio that have the hyperbaric chambers that can treat you for that carbon monoxide in your blood. And so this device gives us that leg up to instantaneously do that. It's not a blood draw. So with little children, you can just clip it on their finger, and we know within seconds whether we have to advance our care and do more care for that person or not. So it's a very useful device. We have some, but they're aging and they're starting to give us failure issues. And this is something that this 13,000, we actually very much lucked out. We weren't sure we were going to be able to get 3 of them, and there's been a very significant price reduction, and we've got about a 1-week window to order these, and the timing all worked out that we got the price reduction, and called Maryland. We were able to modify things and be able to get the 4 of them at a reduced rate for Rotary, which allows you to take some money that you were going to funnel towards that and use it elsewhere in the community as well. So everything worked out perfectly for this.
We're happy to do that. And I would say that was the major effort of the recent gala. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. All right. Well, good morning. Absolutely, yes. Good morning. It's my pleasure to come back again. When Marilyn first spoke to me, she said, "Can I come and speak about EMS and fire?" Those 2 topics, believe it or not, are radically different. Completely different groups, and they each have quite a bit of time involved in them. So we decided to split it up into 2 different presentations. So already spoke about EMS, so I'm back today to talk about fire department. When I spoke to Joe, the question was, can I do some things about fire safety in the home and a few other things in addition to that? So that's what we'll try to get accomplished today. And if I could have somebody kind of give me a heads up when I'm getting close, maybe Joe, give me a heads up, or somebody, when I'm getting close to the end of my time, because as you all know, I can talk all day when I'm passionate about a topic. So we'll start with the makeup of the Hudson Fire Department. As I said, really different than EMS. This is a group that the vast majority the department has been on the department for many years, some of them 25, 30 years, and a couple of them 45 years like myself or longer. And we're made up of what in the day we used to always call ourselves volunteers. Technically, we're not anymore. We do get a stipend of pay when we come in for a call. So the correct term now is we are part paid on call firefighters, which means that they're at their work, at their job, at home, wherever, and they have their pager with them or their cell phone. And when there's a fire, we get a notification that comes over both our cell phone and our pager and lets us know that there's a fire. Currently, there's 41 of us on the department, and that's made up of, we have the officer corps at the top of the department with myself, 2 assistant chiefs, 2 captains, and 4 lieutenants. And then we have a reserve lieutenant who's our chief engineer as well, so that would make 5. And then we have 31 firefighters. As far as the staffing of the station, again, we're dramatically different than EMS. EMS has 2 crews on station 24/7. The fire department doesn't have that. We have a daytime staff Monday through Friday that's made up of myself and one of the assistant chiefs as a part-time member is there. We have a full-time fire marshal. We have a full-time fire educator that goes into the schools and teaches the children. We have 2 fire inspectors that go out and inspect the businesses in town to make sure they're safe. And my full-time executive assistant, who is also a firefighter. And then as I mentioned, our part-time chief engineer that takes care of our equipment, our trucks, both for fire and for EMS. So we're there Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 o'clock. And we all respond to fires both during that time, and every one of us are also volunteers or part paid on calls that after hours we come to calls as well. So the other times we have what's called the duty officer. That's the officer that's in charge. So I don't have to always be the person that's in charge and on duty. We like to train the other officers to eventually, when I do retire here in a couple of years, we've got a number of great candidates and we'll be able to find the right person to replace me. And so we rotate that position, and there's a duty officer that's on duty 24/7. And they handle those calls where you've got a beeping smoke detector, but you don't smell any smoke in your house. You don't see anything, and you just need a little bit of assistance. You don't need the fire trucks. You don't need the lights and siren. You just need a little assistance. And that duty officer goes out and handles those kind of calls. And they are also the person in charge whenever there is a fire incident of any kind. Unless I get there and it's real significant and it might be getting over the head of that officer because they have a little bit less experience or whatever, then I'll take command when I get there. But usually I'll stand back and be in that support role so they get that experience. So I don't have to take command of those fire scenes very often because we have great volunteer and part-time officers, and they're very, very experienced, very knowledgeable. A lot of people will ask why we don't have a full-time fire department in Hudson. That's a question that I get every now and then. We're kind of the old-fashioned volunteer department where the people don't stay and live on station like every one of our neighbors. We are the only remaining volunteer fire department in Summit County. And a lot of people ask, well, they automatically assume that a full-time paid department is better, and that you'll get faster service and you'll get better service and everything. And so my answer to that is, so far, I and city council and a lot of other very smart people have decided that at the moment, we still don't need to have a full-time fire department because what we're doing is working very, very well. Split like we are and having the EMS that's on station 24/7 and able to respond. So we have those 5 or 6 members that are there 24/7. Then on the fire department side, we have that duty officer that comes out 24/7 and responds to the minor calls. So that leaves just the big fires, the big significant incidents where you need the fire truck. And what makes Hudson unique, we're an affluent community that has very nice buildings and homes and facilities that people take care of. We're not living in a very poor area of the country where we have dilapidated buildings and businesses that are falling down. And so we have very good structures and good kind of bones of the city, so to speak. And so we don't have a lot of fires. Many people would be surprised to know that I looked back the last 20 years before I came here. And in the last 20 years, we've never had more than 4 fully working structure fires in a year's time. Any one of those years in the last 20 years. We just don't have them. We're very, very fortunate. People have smoke detectors. People pay attention, have alarm systems in businesses. And so we get early notification. So it ends up being a small wastebasket fire or just a corner of a room. And we don't have the great big fires. So to have, last year, we had 3. The year before, 2. So to have 8 or 10 full-time firefighters sitting on station whose job is to respond to the fires for 2 significant structure fires a year isn't a very cost-effective way to spend your money. And we discovered that doing a study to upgrade to a full-time fire department would cost the city about $6 million to do that upgrade. And then $4 million every year after that, once you do that initial upgrade in additional salaries and everything because of the pay difference of a full-time firefighter and all the benefits and everything that goes with that compared to the nominal stipend that our quote volunteers get now. So it's a real different circumstance here in Hudson. And until there's probably, I guess, somebody higher up in the food chain than me decides that we need to have it, we seem to be doing pretty well with what we got. So we're happy with the organization. We're able to respond to the calls. We have plenty of people to respond. And the other unique thing about our model is if you think about it, compare us to Twinsburg, Stowe, Streetsboro, any of the towns around us, they have a finite number of firefighters on duty. Say that's 10 firefighters. You get 3 of them go out on the first EMS call. You get 3 of them that go out on the second EMS call. Okay, so that's 6. That leaves you 4 firefighters left at the station to actually fight a fire. God forbid you have a 3rd EMS call. Now you got 1 person left at the station. So the unique thing about our fire department, we average whenever there's a fire call, how good or bad, small or large, whatever, we average 18 of our firefighters respond to those calls. So we have close to double the number of firefighters responding to any call in comparison to any of our neighbors. And usually more than double because the odds of having an EMS call or 2 ongoing at any given time, we constantly have 2 EMS calls simultaneously at Hudson EMS, just in our town, let alone at bigger towns. And so being able to have that backup of firefighters that are not doing the EMS job, that can focus solely on the firefighting, we can sometimes get 3 times the number of firefighters that you would get at a larger town than ours. And people say, what's the downside? Really, the only downside is the time. During the day, we have the same response time as any other fire department because the full-time staff is there on station. We can jump on the truck and go immediately. It's only on the evenings and weekends when you have to add plus 3 minutes to the response time because those firefighters have to leave their job, their home, whatever, work wherever they're at, drive to the station, get on the fire truck and go to the fire. And that average takes us about 3 minutes to do that. So instead of a 5-minute response time to every portion of Hudson on average, which is what EMS and the daytime fire staff is, it bumps it up to about 8.5 minutes, depending if you're on the outskirts of town. So that trade-off, $6 million less, 3 minutes longer on 2-3 times a year for a significant structure fire. Is that worth $6 million? Maybe some people might think it is. Personally, I'm happy with what we're doing. So we're going to stay status quo. People ask how many calls we have a lot. EMS, we're on pace to have 2,500 calls at EMS this year. And on the fire side, we average between 550 and 600 calls a year. So not nearly as many calls. And of those 600 calls, more than 400 of them are false alarms. So smoke detectors beeping that need just the duty officer, or a mulch pile on fire in front of a business that you step on it or throw a bucket of water on it and it's out. We do have a lot of car accidents and other things like that because we do have the turnpike and Route 8 and 480 in our territory. So we do have those highways to deal with. But when it comes to those calls, a very small number of those 600 calls a year are of significance where you need of the whole fire department and all of our assets to respond. So because of the quality of the buildings, the quality of the people, we just don't have a lot of calls in Hudson. If that was to change, we might have to change to a different model. Look back at the structure fires just because we did a comparison when I was here for EMS, what's happened since COVID. And there has been no significant change, the same 2 or 3 significant calls in a year. This year, we've had 2 structure fires so far this year. One was just the other day on June 9th. And before that was on March 7th, we had structure fires. Both of them were accidental in nature. It's not like we have a lot of arson fires or fires like that. So both of them were accidental and involved with electrical equipment that either overheated or failed due to a defect and caused structure fires. Fortunately, no one was hurt in either of those fires. And we did have a fatality last year in a structure fire. It was unfortunately a gentleman, an older gentleman living at home alone, and he did not have any heat in the house for as far as like the an oil furnace or a gas furnace or an electric furnace. And he was heating the house with 17 portable heaters plugged into his outlets. And one of those portable heaters failed, and he was asleep and the house caught on fire. He did not have smoke detectors and he perished in the fire. So that was the most recent fire fatality that we had. And so that kind of speaks volumes about having smoke detectors or alarm systems in your homes. I've talked about, we do have those major highways and we do have a lot of truck fires. I did bring a video, if we could bring up that video and just pause it. This is something that we had last year, and this was what I'll call a near miss. This is at the school bus garage right there at Hudson Drive and Route 91 South. And this is a tanker truck that comes in. They contract to have them come in and fill up the buses because we do have buses that run on diesel as well as on natural gas. And so this tanker truck was there and he had pulled in and he had pulled out his hose to fill up one of the diesel buses. And then we had an unfortunate incident. And when I say a near miss, this was, in my professional estimate, about 2 minutes away from fully exploding when we arrived. I arrived 3 minutes after we got the call. You're going to see the first 52 seconds of this fire because the security video caught the fire. And see what happens in the first 52 seconds. Now imagine where it was 3 minutes later when we got there, and then we had to fight the fire. And it burned this truck significantly, destroyed it. And it turned out to be because of when he came in and put the truck in park, set the brake, turned on the pump. People would think a pump would fail or something like that. No, the transmission line going from the truck over to the pump that feeds it ruptures. So now you see the step that you get up into the cab on that bright white or silver step there. Watch right there. And very, very quickly, you'll see what a bad day we had and how close to this entire truck exploding and taking a large chunk of that area and causing a significant fire. Because this had 4,000 gallons of, we had 2,000 gallon diesel fuel tanks, 1,000 gallon gasoline tank, and 1,000 gallon fuel oil tanker, all on that shared tanker. It's called a mixed load tanker. So we had 4,000 gallons of explosive fuel on that truck. And go ahead and push play if you would and dim the lights. This is what happens in that first 52 seconds. So watch right at that step, that silver step, right where you get up into the cab of the truck. He throws the lever, the gentleman turns the switch on for the pump. The transmission line breaks and there's the fire. That's the first 10 seconds of the fire. And look how big it's getting because transmission oil getting sprayed on the hot exhaust pipe is very, very flammable, as you see. And now that transmission oil is spreading onto the ground. You see the puddle forming, and that's starting to run across the parking lot towards a storm drain, which if it gets in that storm drain and then runs down into other areas, we had the school bus garage right like 30 feet. The camera is hanging on the back of the school bus garage. So that's how close the school bus garage, the maintenance facility is. And then you have all the buses there. So it's starting to flow. You see it trickling down. And that's the first 50 seconds. So imagine how significant that was when I got there and a minute later when the fire trucks got there and how close we were. There are pressure vents on that truck that says, get away, I'm about to explode. And when I pulled up 3 minutes after we got the call, pressure vents on two of the tanks, the gas tank and the front diesel tank were already venting. And that's a sign of, if I explode, it's going to take out about a half-mile area around you with that 1,000 gallons of gasoline and diesel fuel on fire if that would explode. So that was a stress-filled couple of minutes till our firefighters got there. And my biggest concern truly was, is that going to explode while we're putting the fire out? Because we had minutes to make that happen, to be able to wrap a fire hydrant, drag the hose from the street all the way into the building or from the yard hydrant, get it connected to the pump, get the hose stretched out, get the air packs on, get everything ready, and then attack the fire. We had to attack it with firefighting foam because water will just spread the fuel and make it a bigger fire. It's not going to put it out. So we had a lot to do, and we did that in about a minute, 20 seconds. We got the foam on it after the first arriving truck arrived, and we're able to slow it down enough that the tanks did not explode. So we did not have an explosion. We did have a very minor hazardous materials issue. We got the storm drain covered very quickly and got down stream from that to where the discharge of that storm drain went. We were able to plug it and keep all of that. Eventually there was diesel fuel because it burned through the diesel tank of the truck. So we lost that 40 gallons of diesel fuel, fell onto the ground when it burned, went into the storm drain, but we plugged that and saved it in there. So EPA was able to come out, Ohio EPA, and they cleaned it up, and we didn't have any kind of a natural disaster. So a real close call. I just want to share, that's one of the average business day things that we have at the fire department to take care of. I'll keep going. Other things that we have, 12 of our members on the fire department are members of the Summit County Hazardous Materials Team. And that means whenever there's a major hazmat call anywhere in Summit County, those 12 members are paged out and they join other members from Akron Fire, Stowe Fire, Twinsburg Fire, and they take the hazmat assets and go take care of that. We affectionately call them the mop and glow team because it's a hazardous situation with unknown things and they have to really put their lives at risk to go into significant hazardous issues. And then we also have 12 members on the technical rescue operations team for Summit County, which is where you do all those other super specialized things, confined space, high angle, if you have to climb the water tower and work off the top of the water tower, being able to do scuba diving, being able to get in manhole covers, confined space underground. All those things are handled by the technical rescue operations team for Summit County. And we're proud to have 12 members of our team. And the only department that has more members than that on the team is Akron Fire. And so of every city in Summit County, Hudson has more members on those two teams than any other city except for Akron. So we're very proud of that. Last, I did a little comparing of major incidents recently, and we did have two major storm events within the last year. One was on June 1st of 2022, and the other one was on April 1st of this year, 2023. What made them significant, the biggest one was June 1st of 2022. I don't know if anybody had any damage at their home, but we had 77 separate calls for help during the time that we were dealing with that storm event. So major thunderstorm, they called it a cell that dropped in on us that wasn't quite a tornado, but it was really, really close to being a tornado. I can attest to that. We had 85 different locations that our vehicles had to respond to. So 85 vehicle responses. 23 of our firefighters came in to assist that day. And we worked for 19 and a half hours to handle those 77 calls and didn't have to call mutual aid. We were able to handle every one of them internally ourselves. On April 1st of this year, it was a smaller event, but we did have 17 separate calls for service and assistance, 28 vehicle responses, and we had 17 of our firefighters show up, and we worked for 5 hours to take care of that. And that's trees on fire, wires down on houses, trees on houses, every imaginable thing that you can have during a storm, typically electrical and fire related and water related. If you have a lot of water, we have basements filling with water, people trapped in their homes, that kind of a thing. And that's at that same time that April 1st incident was happening, it was a bigger storm, so it was a larger area, and we were called for mutual aid assistance in Twinsburg. And I sent 4 of my firefighters on one of our engines up there to help Twinsburg with that, because they were out on 2 EMS calls and they had 3 people on station to handle their major structure fire. Simultaneous to that, we got a call that we've never gotten before, and that was to go to a town called Warren Township, which is quite a ways and more than an hour drive from here. And we were called for our special structural collapse team. Hudson, of our 12 members, 8 of them are specialized trained in structural collapse, and they had a very large 60-inch diameter tree fell on a house, and it was trapping a father and a young boy inside the house. Unfortunately, that 13-year-old boy died, and our people had to help out to get the body out. So we had a lot of those emotional, mental things to deal with. Every one of the crew that we sent there, they were dads, so pretty tough circumstance to live with. We did have another significant incident that happened here in Hudson, January 4th of this year. And obviously I won't mention names, but we had an adult female who was having a mental breakdown and felt that she was going to kill herself by flinging herself off the top of I'm saying bandstand, it's not the bandstand, the top of the press box at the Hudson High School track. And so she was up there, and this was at a time where we get the call, and she was dangling, holding herself by one arm up on top here, ready to jump off. And it was about 35, almost 40 feet down to the concrete below, where she either would have died or been significantly injured if she did jump. And we spent a total of more than 5 hours trying to protect her by holding underneath her. We had 8 firefighters holding great big salvage covers that are 20 feet by 30 feet in diameter, holding it under to catch her if she fell. And we had to stand there for 5 hours, and it was 34 degrees out. And we kept rotating our people because their hands were freezing, because you couldn't wear gloves, because you had to grip the salvage cover so much. It was drizzling a little bit, so we had wet weather, we had ice cold weather. And so for those 5 hours, between all the firefighters, police, and everything, we had over 128 total man hours invested in safely getting this woman down. And eventually, one of my assistant chiefs was able to grab her, pull her in, and then the rest of the crew were able to jump and hold her from falling and pull her in. But it was something that very unusual for us. And the first 40 minutes that I spent was calling around the neighbors, trying to find where's one of those inflatable airbags you see on TV that the stunt guys fall into and everything. We have one in our area. It's Cleveland Hopkins Airport. It was out of service. The motor was broken, and so they're working on it. So we didn't have that asset. So I'm currently exploring grant opportunities to get Hudson one of those inflatable airbags to use as, I call it, a regional asset. And if anybody in any other department ever has a situation like that, they can call us and we can run that airbag down instead of having firefighters holding and inflate that airbag underneath them, and they can fall into that airbag like you see on television. I was asked, Joe asked to talk about some of the safety issues in your home. If I could pick the single thing to pay attention to, it's your smoke detectors. And I won't ask you to raise your hand because I think you'd be too embarrassed if you saw how many people. Many people are unaware that smoke detectors have a life expectancy, and that life expectancy is only 10 years. And I would bet that there are a dozen people in this room that have smoke detectors that are 25 or 30 years old. They keep putting fresh batteries in it, but the odds of it actually working are pretty remote or working effectively. And so I ask, I implore you, I plead with you, replace your smoke detectors if they're older than 10 years old. And there are two types, a photoelectric and an ionization. And the photoelectric is the way to go. That works way better. It sees the fire in a smaller wispy smoke instead of a great big fire kind of a thing. There are some unique technological changes. They now make battery operated ones that are interconnected. So if the battery operated non-alarmed smoke detector in the basement by the furnace goes off, it will send an RF radio signal and activate all the other smoke detectors in your house. And they don't have to be wired in. So they have that technology available now. Something people don't think about, little kids will sleep through the loudest noise that you can possibly imagine. And yet they will wake up if mom or dad says, Billy, wake up. They now make recordable smoke detectors that mom or dad can put their voice in there, and they say, Billy, wake up. And the 6-year-old will wake up and follow the commands of mom or dad telling him what to do, to get out, go to the meeting place out in the front yard, crawl out the window, whatever. You can give those instructions, up to 30 seconds of instructions on that smoke detector. And that's a pretty neat technology for little kids. Yeah, have your little boy get him one of those. But yeah, those are wonderful things. You can get them pretty much anywhere, Home Depot, Lowe's, any of the places like that. You're just looking for a voice command smoke detector. But they're a wonderful thing. And then making sure you have enough. It used to be, they said, have one smoke detector on every floor. Now the word is you should have one near every sleeping quarters. So many people sleep with their doors closed, and they'll sleep through the smoke detector right outside the door beeping. So they now, the National Fire Protection Agency says, have a smoke detector in every bedroom, then one on every floor minimum in the house. So many houses can have 6 or 8 smoke detectors in a house. And making sure you don't put one too near the stove. It's not a timer that says dinner's done. It is a smoke detector. And we have a number of those timer type fire false alarms. And the other new technology is that smoke detectors will last about 15 years or so. They have an end of life signal. It will start beeping. Usually it's either 4 or 5 beeps, just a beep, 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 beep. And that's your warning. Instead of a low battery is usually 3 beeps. A end of life signal is saying, I'm done, throw me out, buy another one. And we get calls all the time. My smoke detector is beeping. I can't figure out why. If you take it off the ceiling, look in the back, it says 5 beeps, it's end of life, time to throw it out. Same with carbon monoxide detectors. I'll ask you, if you don't have one of those, get one. You don't need as many. 1 or 2 in a home is sufficient. It's a bigger home. You might need the 2, but 1 or 2 is enough. And it should be near the sleeping quarters of the adults in the house, so it wakes you up. And they make the ones that plug in the wall, so it's normally on electricity, but make sure you get the one that has battery backup. So if you do lose power, then it will still go off, because that's when things go awry. Your furnace isn't working, people are burning a fireplace or trying to heat the house in some unusual way. So you need one of those. They also have an end of life signal, and they only have a 7-year life expectancy. Last couple quick things I'll talk about before I take questions. Fire extinguishers. People don't think fire extinguishers have a life expectancy. They also only last about 10 years. Then that powder that's inside a typical ABC fire extinguisher, it hardens up. You pull the trigger, nothing's going to come out. So make sure that you have up-to-date fire extinguishers. Having 2 in a typical size home, 1 near the garage we would recommend, and 1 near the kitchen area. That's where the most common fires are in a residential house. And just get the ABC type, so it works for any type of a fire that you would have in your home. Brought a sample here afterwards. If anybody's interested, you can come up. This is called a Knox box. It's basically a bulletproof key safe that it can put your house key in. And if we get to your house and you're asleep, or you're injured, or you're unable to because you have a medical condition, your house key is locked inside. I take this key that is secured in my car, I remove that key, unlock this key safe, take your house key, unlock your door, go in, do what we need to do. Option B is I tear your $1,000 door off the front of your house to get inside. So these are about $250. If you're a senior citizen in Hudson over the age of 65, and you're living in a home in Hudson, or an apartment, not in like Laurel Lake or whatever, but if you're living independently, we will give you one of these for free if you're a senior citizen. So you can apply for that by calling Hudson Fire Department. We all, yes. Okay. These are wonderful thing. If you want to come look at it, they're bulletproof. We have keys for banks in them. We have over 700 of these in businesses in town hanging on their front door or bolted right next to it on the wall. And we have it for many local banks and businesses. So it's very, very secure. You can't get it open with a crowbar. You practically have to blow it up to get it open. So if you're interested, you can come take a look at that when I'm done. And so you can get that for free if you're a senior. You can get free smoke detectors and a free carbon monoxide detector. That's our Fire Safe Senior program that all you got to do is call the fire department, set us up. We'll come out, we'll install them, we'll hang them on the ceiling. We'll do everything for you at no charge. If you're a senior in Hudson, we got a grant over $100,000 we got to be able to give these Knox boxes out and smoke detectors. We're working with the Red Cross and other agencies. So those are all available. And the last thing I'll mention is there's a program called the Code Red system in Hudson. It's basically a program where you sign up for it. You can go on the City of Hudson website. And if you go to the news alerts drop box, and then inside that news alerts, there's an emergency alert drop box. You go to that and just click a button on your mouse and you can sign up for this Code Red. And what Code Red is a system that I have access to and my duty officers where I can send out a message to everybody in Hudson at the same time, or I can say, okay, only the people that live on West Case Drive, I need to let you know that your power's out and we're working on it, or there's a lost child or a lost senior citizen with Alzheimer's in the area and I need your help looking. And I can do that from my phone or from my computer, and the duty officers can do that as well. And that's a system where it will notify you if there's a tornado coming, severe weather, all those. It's a reporting app that you can get on your phone. So you'll get that information as soon as we send it out. It's a free service that the city offers that we pay for at the fire department. So it can notify chunks of Hudson or all of Hudson simultaneously with just a push of the button on my phone. So it's a great asset. If you don't have that, if you're not sure, see me afterwards and I'll repeat those instructions, but just go on the Hudson website, look for alerts and you'll be able to find it. It's a real quick one-click sign up. And that way you'll have that access. And that's pretty much all I have to talk about today. Are there any questions that anyone has for me? Yes, sir.
Some years ago, you gave a presentation to our group and I know it was before COVID, so it's that long ago. You were talking about the downtown Main Street, the older sections that are all of these businesses connected, and your desire to have fire alarm systems, some kind of system that wasn't there. And there was a great reluctance. And that made me think about the potential that, as you pointed out, one place could burn the whole town down. Has that issue been resolved at all? Or?
Well, thanks so much for bringing up my most significant failure recently. I really appreciate that opportunity to share. I put a lot of effort into trying to get those smoke detector fire alarm system across from Main Street, from basically Park Lane all the way up to Clinton Street, where they don't have it, and even further up into Owen Brown Street. And for whatever reason, I didn't gain any traction, and the majority of the building owners and business owners were not interested in getting involved in that. And I thought it was a great idea. And I still think that because of exactly what you said. And you may be seeing online recently, they just, Hudson Cable did a story about the Great Fire on Main Street in 1892. And it burned down all of Main Street from Park Avenue to Clinton Street, the entire block gone. That's why when you look at Hudson, we're all brick structures from Park Lane to Clinton, and then we're wood structures from Clinton to Owen Brown. They didn't burn from Clinton to Owen Brown, and they're the original old buildings, where every building in that block from Park Lane, or that longer than a block, Park Lane to Clinton Street, burned to the ground because of a drunken person came out of a saloon and dropped a cigar and a bale of hay. But in 1892, we did have a fire department. wasn't significant, and we only had our hand pumper that you can come see in the fire museum. There wasn't enough water in town. There weren't enough firefighters. And if it wasn't for Mother Nature opening up a torrential rainstorm, it would have jumped over Clinton Street and burned the buildings up, going up Main Street. The embers from that fire flew up, caught buildings on fire all the way up into Western Reserve Academy area, farms and stuff that were in that area. So it was the biggest fire ever in Hudson, and a lot of businesses were lost and a few homes. And could that happen today? I was asked that question. I just did a video for the storytelling of the Great Fire. Could it happen again today? Sure. Would it be the same? No. We have a much different fire department. We have fire hydrants. We have wonderful trucks. We can get there quick and everything, but we need to know there's a fire. So if there's not somebody there, almost every one of the businesses has a smoke detector in. But at 3 a.m., how many people are in those businesses to hear the smoke detector beeping and to call the fire department? There are only about a dozen fire alarm systems in that long area in downtown that will call out to us if there's a fire. So we'll hear it if Hudson's restaurant has a fire. They have an alarm system. They're required by the state to have one because they have the big kitchen. And we're going to get that call. But if one of the smaller businesses or different businesses that just has a smoke detector has a fire at 3 o'clock, until it either burns out through the roof or blows out the window in front on Main Street, the odds of us knowing it and seeing it and getting the call are pretty slim. And by that time, it's probably spread to the businesses on each side. Now we've got 3 businesses involved in a fire, and it happened in Garrettsville just a couple of years ago. If you ever want to read that story, go in the Hudson Hub. They got a great story about it. Garrettsville was devastated, and they have a wonderful fire department. I know the chief personally. They had the exact same scenario. Brick businesses, smoke detectors, no fire alarms, had a fire in one business, it spread to others, and they burned up a significant amount of their downtown. So do I believe that that's something that we should have? Yes. Someday, maybe the business owners and the building owners will have a different change of heart, and maybe they'll change that. But for now, that is a possibility. Other questions? Mimi.
In your examples of the types of fires that we have in Hudson, I'm curious to know if we have sort of routine or periodic bursts of vandalism. This last week, for example, it could have been a disaster. We had a hate crime where somebody wadded up a rainbow flag and threw it on a front porch and set it on fire. If the neighbors hadn't been looking, that could have been a really bad thing. It was bad enough. But do we have a record of vandalism where kids set
Relatively rare.
fires?
Every few years, we'll have typically it's an upset teenager that wants to start doing some things. We have a lot of mailbox fires that they'll put a bottle bomb in the mailbox fire and blow up the mailbox. We did lose 100 cars behind the Joanne stores building. There's a parking lot that a number of local car dealerships stored their spare cars in. And about 20 years ago, we had somebody that came in and lit about a dozen of them on fire. And again, it was 2 o'clock in the morning. Nobody saw it. By the time we got the call, about 50 of them were on fire. By the time we got there and started putting out the first 50, another 50 caught on fire. So we lost 100 brand new cars, 103 as I remember, on that day. It's not common. We do get porta potties get lit on fire a lot at construction sites. So that's a popular thing that kids like to light on fire. But no, in comparison to some of our neighbors, we're pretty fortunate. We don't have a lot of vandalism, but every now and then we do get that little spurt of, and it's usually one person or a couple kids, but not very often. Yes, ma'am.
So when it comes to the buildings in Hudson that don't have the alarm systems, is there something that the city can mandate when they start opening up that they need to put those in to reduce this problem?
There's no law that we can force somebody to do it. The state fire code requires alarm systems and smoke detectors in certain types of businesses. Typically, it's assembly businesses or assembly locations like churches and restaurants, stuff like that. Any place that there is a high hazard of either people or product, and the fire code mandates that they have those things there, and we check that when people move in and make sure that they have it. So we get the smoke detectors wherever it's mandated and required. Where it's not, for a mom and pop barber shop kind of a thing, there's no fire code that mandates it, and I don't have the authority to require it. And so we looked into that to see if the city could go and say, you must have it to be downtown. And they could go forward and say any new business, they could request it, require it, but they can't grandfather it and force businesses that have been there for a long time to do it if it's not mandated and required by the fire code. Unfortunately,
Okay, so
I
one
would
day,
love to have that power. to
so
say,
one day the
"Everybody
state will
get
catch
it."
up about people's safety and enforce that.
Yeah, it would be wonderful if I had that authority or someone did, but unfortunately, no, we don't.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much for coming, and yeah, don't forget the check. I could deliver it to you. All right, we need. Not cashing there. Our Rotobuck raffle payout today is $8. Jackpot $271. So if you would pick us out a number. And then read that out.
Okay, and see, the last four are 3656. Last four digits, 3656.
Oh, yes, well done, you.
All right. That was 50-50, right, Joe? That's what.
You get $4. All right, so if you see there's a black name, you'll hold, I'll let you pick it.
Okay.
If you pick it for me. No. So thank you so much again for coming. We really appreciate it, and grateful for all that you do for our city. Yeah, thank you again. So do we have a minute? I mean, this is my last one right here. So I thought one more story. Yes. Well, one more story. Okay. And so this one is about, have I told you about the school teacher who was early 20th century, was going to relocate to Switzerland to teach abroad for a year? Have I told you the story? If you remember it along the way, just pretend like, yeah, it's the first time you've ever heard it. Okay. So there's a school teacher, early part of the 20th century, and she's going to go abroad to teach in Switzerland. And so she writes to the schoolmaster to ask about lodging, and the schoolmaster promised to, find her an apartment. So he goes around, he looks, he finds one, and he writes back and he describes it. Beautiful place, lovely view, proximate to the school, all these kind of nice shopping amenities and whatnot. But this is the early 20th century, and he didn't mention anything about indoor plumbing. And she was quite concerned about this, and so she wrote back to the schoolmaster to inquire whether or not there was a bathroom in the apartment. But she was a lady, and she wouldn't just say that. So she just asked if there was a WC, which she was sure that he would understand was a water closet. Well, he got this letter from her asking whether or not there was a WC in the apartment or near the apartment. And he thought, well, I don't even know what this means. And so he asked around, and he goes to the local parish priest. And the parish priest says, oh, it's obvious that she's a very pious lady. She means a wayside chapel. Well, the schoolmaster was thrilled. And so he wrote a letter back to the lady, and I have the letter. And I thought I would read it to you. Dear Madam, you'll be thrilled to know that the WC is located a mere 5 miles from your apartment, in the heart of a beautiful grove of trees. It'll seat 150 people at one time and is open on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays. Some people bring their lunch and make a day of it. On Thursdays, there's organ accompaniment. The acoustics are very good. The slightest sound can be heard by everyone. It may interest you to know that my daughter met her husband at the WC. We are now in the process of taking up donations to purchase plush seats. We feel that this is a long felt need as the present seats have holes in them. My wife, being rather delicate, hasn't been able to attend regularly. In fact, it's been 6 months since she last went. Naturally, it pains her not to be able to go more often. I will close with a desire to accommodate you in every way possible, and we happen to save you a seat, either down front or near the door, as you prefer. Yours truly, Adam von Lichtenstein, schoolmaster. I love to use this one when I preach from the Hebrew prophet Micah, who says to the people of Israel, remember that God requires of you, do justice, love mercy, and walk in humility with your God. Those are 3 good things to keep in mind. Have a great day. Be great today. Make a difference in somebody's life.